Hello everyone, welcome to your new episode of Time Hop TV. Today is the first part in a new mini-series on the Tudors in crisis and the English Reformation. First of all, you know what to do, click that subscribe button so you're not going to miss out on any future episodes. Without further ado, let's get started. So in today's episode, we're going to focus on the early reign of Henry VIII. So Henry VIII is born in 1491, towards the end of the 15th century, and it's important for us just to set the scene and the context of the world that he's born into. So Henry's father, Henry VII, defeats Richard of York at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, and his role really is to try and strengthen and stabilise the kingdom after years of civil war and the Wars of the Roses. So Henry's father, Henry, he needs to reorganise the nation's finances and build solid foundations for the Tudor dynasty to survive. Compared to its European neighbours, England is sort of a junior partner at this point in time. France, the Habsburg Empire and the Holy Roman Empire, and also the Spanish, they are far more powerful and have a lot more powerful military and also a far more powerful nation. Henry's early years are marked by a thirst for education and curiosity. Now, when you think of Henry VIII, you think of quite, the big, fat, jolly fellow. However, when he was younger, he was far more slimmer and more athletic. He's what we might call the Renaissance man. Now, the Renaissance was a period in history between the 14th to the 16th centuries, where it was a time of rebirth. So Renaissance means rebirth. And it started in Italy and it spread around Europe. And the Renaissance man essentially is meant to embody the ideals of knowledge, skill, arts and culture. And Henry, as a young boy, he does embody these ideals. For example, he's very athletic, he's physical, he's good at horse riding, jousting. He's very good at the arts, he's good at singing apparently. He's also good at playing musical instruments like the lute and the organ. And he's very well read, and he can speak French, Italian, and also Latin. Henry, however, is not destined to take the throne. He has an older brother, Arthur, who is the Prince of Wales and heir presumptive. However, Arthur dies aged 15, 20 weeks after marrying someone called Catherine of Aragon. Now, she's going to be very important to our story. Catherine was from Spain, and following Arthur's death, Henry VII was still keen to try and forge an alliance with Spain. In medieval times, what would happen is that kings and queens around Europe, they would marry their sons and daughters off to different countries to try and bind families and countries closer together. So Henry, he was very keen on trying to forge an alliance with the powerful country Spain. Therefore, when Arthur died, he nominated his other son, Henry, to marry Catherine. However, it wasn't that straightforward. Under law, it was illegal for someone to marry their brother's widow. Therefore, Henry had to go to the Pope, who was the head of the Catholic Church and therefore in charge of marital matters. He needed permission from the Pope. It was known as a papal dispensation. Essentially, it was like a permission slip so that he could marry Catherine. And the Pope was happy to oblige and the marriage could go ahead. Henry VII, however, would not live to see his son marry Catherine. Henry VII dies in April 1509. His son takes the throne, and Henry marries Catherine a couple of weeks later, and they are both crowned King and Queen of England in June 1509 to great fanfare. To Henry's delight, a couple of years later, in 1511, Catherine gives birth to a baby boy, also called Henry, just to confuse matters. Henry and Catherine are overjoyed. Henry now has a baby boy to secure the Tudor dynasty. In response, Henry hosts a 2-day jousting tournament in celebration. People are celebrating in the streets. The couple are overjoyed to have a baby boy. However, tragedy strikes several weeks later, and the baby boy Henry, he dies from a short illness. Now, both Catherine and Henry are absolutely distraught, and it does put a strain on the couple's relationship. However, in 1516, a baby girl comes along, which they name Mary, and this does help to bring the couple together. Also at this time, Henry wanted to gain territory in France. Going back to the 1300s, during the 100 Years' War, England and France had been at each other's throats. And Henry's father, Henry VII, He wanted to restart the 100 Years' War in order to gain territory once again. Henry was no different. And in terms of his foreign policy, he wanted to regain land by allying with Charles V, who was the Holy Roman Emperor. In 1520, Henry met with the French King Francis I in order to put their differences aside and come to an agreement. This became known as the Field of the Cloth of Gold, a meeting near the port of Calais, controlled by the English, and it was a 2-week lavish entertainment, a real show of Renaissance diplomacy and action. However, peace was not obtained, and Francis and Henry could not come to any agreement. Back in England, by the mid-1520s, Henry was growing impatient with Catherine's ability to give him what he ultimately desired, a baby boy. Now, a key question we need to answer in our story is, why was Henry so fixated on having a male heir? And to understand this, we need to get into the mindset of the Tudor dynasty. Remember, Henry VII, Henry's father, he took the throne by force. At the Battle of Bosworth, he took it from Richard III. And Henry, in his early years of his reign, he faced many rebellions. So the Tudor line is not quite yet stabilised, consolidated, or secure. So having a male heir secures that that the Tudor dynasty is going to go on for a next generation. And this is what Henry has in the back of his mind when he's looking for a wife and wanting to have a boy. Added to that, we know how fragile life can be at this time. Arthur has already died, and shortly after, Henry's mother died as well. So Henry is constantly thinking about the future. How can he secure the Tudor dynasty and lay the foundations for a successful dynasty? But we also know that by this time, Henry has had a baby girl, Mary. Why is he not happy with that? Well, unfortunately, society at this time is very sexist, and the prevailing view among society was that women were too weak to rule. Therefore, men are the right sex to rule a society. And added to that, in English history, the queens that we have had, for example, Matilda during the Anarchy, were not quite particularly successful. So unfortunately, society sort of the connotations of women ruling were a negative one. Therefore, for Henry, this just once again underlined that he needed a baby boy to secure the Tudor bloodline. And although the marriage was apparently a happy one, Henry did still take mistresses over the course of his marriage to Catherine. So Henry did see other women alongside his marriage. This was pretty common at court. Kings were expected to see other women, as marriages were seen as a play of political gain rather than personal companionship. As time went on into the mid-1520s, one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting began to catch Henry's eye, and her name was Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was a well-educated young lady. Her father, Thomas Boleyn, was from a low middle-class background, but he was an ambitious diplomat on behalf of Henry, and he strategically placed Anne at the heart of court in order for their family's fortunes to be promoted. Anne was, as I say, well-educated. She could speak French and read Latin. And as a young lady, she was dispatched to the French court to learn what life was like abroad. Whilst Anne was at the French court, she was exposed to a new revolutionary idea, sweeping across Europe. What was this new, explosive, dangerous thinking? Would she bring it with her to the English court? And if Henry did want to take a new bride, it was just a small matter of that he was married. Find out next time on Time Hop TV when we delve into the Tudor turmoil and the English Reformation. Thank you very much.